If you'd like online business explained to you in a way that you can actually understand, go to latenightim.com/explain. It's completely free and I made it just for you. Now, how about an episode?
Episode 187.
Late Night Internet Marketing.
This week on the Late Night Internet Marketing Podcast is just another week. It's a week where you get closer to your dreams despite the fact that life is getting in your way. All this and more on the Late Night Internet Marketing Podcast.
The Late Night Internet Marketing Podcast.
You've been working for somebody else, but you want a business to run yourself. You want to know how to start and where to begin. Can you get out your comfort zone, my friend? Yes, you can do it right when it's late at night. At the end of the day, your dreams burning inside. So keep it up and you will find that you're building your business one night at a time.
And now, broadcasting late at night from a little studio in the big state of Texas, your host, Mark Mason.
Hey, how is everyone doing? I am your host, Mark Mason, coming to you from the little studio in Dallas. I hope you are having an absolutely fantastic day. I am so happy to be here. It's one of the privileges that I enjoy as an internet marketer with a podcast. I get to come to you, and embarrassingly, I haven't exercised that privilege as frequently as I should. I've been out for a couple of weeks. It's been crazy here in Dallas. I went to Vegas. More on that later. That was craziness. And I just got busy. And you know, life is so much that way for those of us with big dreams. You guys know my story. I have a day job. I have kids. They're doing school. My son did a science project with where he was simulating the function of kidneys. We're wrapping up baseball season. We've started private lessons with a guy from MLB. Everything is going crazy in my house. My wife's photography business is busy. I've been working on her website. And sometimes something has to give. And I tell you what gave. It was the roof. Yes. I don't know if you heard in the news, but tornadoes hit Dallas. And my office was impacted and it compromised the roof. And water poured into my office building, and I am displaced from my office at work for a while. And all of that, that's the day job work, by the way, all of that has created enough chaos to give me the courage to offer you this excuse. I was busy. And you know, that's crazy because if I were to be really honest about my priorities, this podcast is super high. So why do we let that happen? Why do I let that happen? I try to unpack that. And I think there's a thing that happens where I think it's sort of a physics thing. The podcast takes an enormous amount of energy because not just because I have to think about what I want to say, but I try, and I hope you're feeling this, I try to pour myself into it. And sometimes when I'm super distracted and there's a lot going on, I just feel like I don't have the energy. And, you know, it's because I want to do a good job. And I think part of it is not giving you guys enough credit that you would have the grace to accept maybe a little lower energy episode. Sometimes I think maybe it's that I, lack the self-confidence to just put the stuff out there without the right kind of preparation. I'm not sure. I'm still working on that. But what I do know is I see this a lot in other people and probably in you, that you let the stuff that's going on in your life, just the everyday, day-to-day stuff, the basketball practice and the soccer practices and the baseball practices and the fixing dinner and the helping with homework, you let that stuff, which admittedly has to be done, you have to get that stuff done, you let that get in the way of your big dreams. And I wonder is that okay? I mean, I don't think it's okay. I don't think it's okay. And I was remembering, about 25 years ago when I first got on board with my day job, I started working on these big dreams of being a leader in my company. And I achieved that. And the way I achieved it was by focusing on personal and organizational development. It's one of the things that's been really important to me over the last 20 years is leveling up myself in my day job business, not so much technically, but more from a leadership perspective, although, technical investment is part of that when you're an engineer, but also bringing up the people around me, the people that work for me. And the way that you do that in a corporate setting is with personal and organizational development. You do 360 evaluations and personality assessments, and you do training, and you read books, and you work on different methodologies, and you do team building, and you take people to lunch, and you network, and you do all these things to make yourself a better engineer, a better leader, a better manager. And what I think I've seen in all this time is that there are definitely people that are making a mistake that was described to me by Stephen Covey, of all people, almost 25 years ago. When Stephen Covey talks about in his books, The 7 Habits of Highly Successful People, he talks about this experiment where he has this jar, and he asks people to put stuff in this jar. And particularly, it's like a big bell jar, like if you could imagine a 1-gallon jar. And particularly, he has sand and pebbles and rocks and little rocks and big rocks and stuff. And he says, hey, can you get all this stuff in the jar? And he does this demonstration where you put the sand in, you put the rocks in, and then you got 2 or 3 big rocks that just won't fit in the jar. They just don't fit. And he says, how can you get everything in this jar? And it turns out the solution to the puzzle is to put the big rocks in first, because the only way the big rocks fit in the jar is if you put them in first. You put the big rocks in the jar, and then you can put the little rocks in and kind of shake the jar, and the little rocks fit in around. And then you can put the sand in, and you can fill up the jar. And then he looks at everybody in the audience and he says, is the jar actually full? Do you believe that the jar is full? So you're sitting there, you can imagine he's got this nice table with a big jar on the table, this big glass bell jar, and it's got giant rocks in it, and it's got little rocks in it and sand. And everybody in the audience, almost without exception, says, absolutely, that jar is completely full. And Covey says, he reaches under the table. It's epic. If you probably find this on YouTube. I'll try to find it in the show notes and put it in the show notes. He picks up a pitcher from underneath the table full of water, and he pours water in the jar. And basically the whole point is there's probably room for just about everything that you want to do in your life being the jar. But in order to get it right, you've got to put the big rocks in first. So here's my question to you. Are you putting the big rocks in first? Let me ask you an even more important question. Do you even know what your big rocks are? And I bet a lot of people don't. My buddy Cliff Ravenscraft, he has this amazing conference called Free the Dream out in Franklin, Tennessee every year. And I encourage you to check that out at freethedream.live is the place you're going to want to go see that. But in any case, if you are wondering what your rocks are, one crazy way that you can find out what your rocks might be is you can do this exercise that Cliff makes everyone at his conference do. Sit down and force yourself to write down 25 things that you really want in your life. It doesn't matter how crazy they are. Maybe you dream about having an amazing car. Maybe you dream about taking your husband or wife on a 3-week European vacation. Maybe you want a villa in the south of France. Maybe you dream about saving enough money so that your kids can go to college and you don't have to worry about a dime of it because it's already paid for. Maybe you dream about something more tangible, like being able to pay for your mom's medical bills. Whatever it is that you're dreaming about, I guarantee you that either underpinning some of that stuff or actually some of the things that you write down on that list you're going to find your big rocks, either clues about your big rocks or your actual big rocks are going to be on that list. And I want to encourage you to start putting your big rocks in first. And for me, this business, helping people build businesses online, helping them be successful, the thing that lights me up, that's one of my big rocks. And this podcast is one of the ways that I do that. And that tells me that I need to get my ding dang big rock in the jar, or as we say in the recording business, I need to get the podcast in the can. Okay, so speaking of big rocks, I want to talk to you about one of my big rocks, and that is to get people who are just now trying to start an internet business, but they don't even know where to start, to get them started. Because as you guys know, 10 or 11 years ago, I was in that spot. I got the idea in my head that I wanted to start a business online, but I didn't even know what the words meant. And so I always wanted to, and I have developed a free resource for that. So if you have not seen this or you've not gone through it, I've got this totally free video course that I want you to go check out at latenightim.com/start. That's where you're going to want to go. That is going to put you onto a page where you can leave your email address and get access to my absolutely free video course about how to get started on building an internet business. When you want your own internet business, you don't know where to start and you need to figure it all out at the 10,000 foot level. I think that's what's missing from so many people's education when it comes to how to build a business online. And so this is for that, and it is a completely free thing. So if that appeals to you, go to latenightim.com/start and check that out. Or if you know someone who could benefit from a course like that and you want to do something to help me and support the show, that would be really awesome. Again, it's latenightim.com/start. Maybe you know somebody and you're trying to explain to them what it is that you're trying to do. This is exactly the course for those people who need to learn all about the big picture of internet business. And it is absolutely free and taught by yours truly. And here is the super cool, amazing thing. So finally, after all of this time, Kajabi just this month, or maybe it was actually in October, came out with the mobile app that we've all been asking for so long. So if you go to latenightim.com/start, you can sign up for the course. And one of the things you'll be able to do is download the Kajabi mobile app, and you can get all of your Kajabi content, not just mine, but any Kajabi content that you have under your email address will magically appear in the Kajabi app, and it is so awesome. And so if you want to see what that looks like, that's another great reason to go on over to latenightim.com/start. And anytime you're trying to explain what internet business is to someone and what the choices are, if you want to send them there, I would consider it a personal favor. Okay, so one more topic I wanted to discuss with you guys with regard to building your online business this week. I ran across in one of the many Facebook groups that I'm in, someone who posted that they were worried about going live on Facebook because they didn't like the way they looked. And this particular person was female, and she was worried about her wrinkles, and she was looking for advice about how to mitigate the appearance of her wrinkles in her face, because when she saw herself on Facebook Live, she was uncomfortable with how she looked. And I totally resonated with this and recognize this as a much bigger issue for most people, because as a podcaster, most podcasters, the first time you podcast, you put on the headphones, you're in front of this microphone. And when you're podcasting, and many of you may not realize this, you're monitoring your own audio. And so you hear your own voice in your head, which is super weird. And most people don't like the sound of their own voice. And sometimes when you listen back to that recording that you made, it gets even worse. So I totally get this idea of being uncomfortable with how you look, how you sound, how you feel, whatever. I get it. If this resonates with you, I have some good news for you. One is, most people they're not looking at it that way. They don't hear your voice and think, oh my gosh, that guy's voice doesn't sound the way he expected it to. And they don't look at your face and go, oh my gosh, that person has a face for radio. They don't do that. What they do is they try and make an assessment about whether or not the investment that they're going to put in is worth the time that they're going to spend doing it. Are they going to get more out of what they're doing than they put in? That's the real assessment that people are making when they decide whether or not to consume your content. Let's talk about somebody that you know intimately. I guarantee that when you pushed play this morning on this podcast, the one you're listening to right now, the reason that you did that, even if you didn't make a conscious decision, is because you felt like when you were done listening to this podcast, that you would be a little bit better off than you were before you listened to it. And that time that you spent listening to it was worth it. That I didn't waste your time to such an extent that you actually lost ground, lost time, the opportunity cost wasn't worth it. That's not the case. What you thought was, hey, I'm going to see what Mark has to say because chances are I'm going to be better off than I was before I listened to his podcast. That's why you listen. Every podcast that I listen to is that way. And even if you're listening to something that's entertainment, right, you derive value out of that. When you listen to the radio and you want to hear songs, you're deriving pleasure from hearing those songs, and that's releasing dopamine in your mind, and that makes you feel good. Music makes you happy. And the decision that you made, even if you didn't realize it, before you turn the radio on, the decision consciously or subconsciously that you're making is that probably I'm going to get more out. I'm going to get more value out of this than the time or cost or whatever there is. And it's the same thing when you go to a restaurant. You give them the $20 because you know that the value and the pleasure and the nutrition and all that stuff that you get is worth at least or probably more than what you're paying for it. And if you don't think it is, well, you go eat somewhere else, right? And so nobody is paying much attention to whether or not you have wrinkles or whatever it is that you think. What they want to know is the value of the content that you're trying to provide worth their time. So I want to encourage you, one, stop allowing yourself, if you are like this person who has these fears that they are manifesting as worrying about their wrinkles. We're going to get to that in a second. If you have that, don't worry about that. Worry about whether or not you can actually deliver content that has intrinsic value, whatever it is that you're doing, whether you're building a course, whether you're going live, whether you're doing a podcast, whether you're writing a blog post, make that content valuable. But here's the other thing I want to tell you, and I think this is true. It ain't about the wrinkles. The wrinkles are the thing that you're able to point to and articulate, but really you're afraid. and you're calling it wrinkles, but really you're afraid. And what are you afraid of? You're afraid of rejection. You're afraid people won't appreciate your message. You're afraid that people won't like your blog post. You're afraid they'll leave you a mean comment. You're afraid they'll reach out to you on Voxer at latenightim.com/Voxer. I'd love to hear from you. And you're afraid they're going to say, Mark, you're an idiot. That's what they're afraid of. That's what you're afraid of. Whenever you make an excuse about something that is like wrinkles, you've got, as Cliff Ravenscraft would say, a BS problem. Your belief system is messed up about that. And usually, oftentimes, that's around fear, and it has to do with the fear that people won't love you. That's where it is. That's really what's going on with the wrinkle person. And if that's what's going on with you, I want to encourage you and tell you that you are absolutely right. There are some people that won't love you because you're not for everybody. But I'm going to tell you something. You are uniquely suited to communicate with certain people. There are people listening to this podcast because we get each other. I get them and where they are, and they get me, and we communicate to each other in a way that is effective, and it helps them. Is that hundreds of millions of people? No. Is it hundreds of thousands of people? No. Is it thousands? Yeah. Yeah, it's thousands of people. Is that good? Yeah, that's really good. It's really good. It means that you can take your message to people and communicate with them in a way, whether it's a blog post or a Facebook Live or a video or a course or a podcast or a conversation in a coffee shop. You can uniquely impact people in a way that no one else can, because there is no one else on the planet exactly like you. There's no one else. And so if you don't get your message out there, do your thing, build your business, make progress, add value to the universe, you are denying those people who could be uniquely benefited by you. And I think that is a very, very bad thing that you're doing. So let's get out there. Let's do some stuff. Let's help some people uniquely. Let's bring your unique value to the world, and let's stop worrying about the ding-dang wrinkles.
You can do it right when it's late at night.
You've been listening to the Late Night Internet Marketing Podcast.
Be sure to visit latenightpodcast.com today to leave feedback for Mark. Download special bonus content, access the show notes, and more. See you there.
Until then, go and make some great progress on your internet business. One night at a time.
One night at a time.
Hey, so super great to be back on the mic. Chaos in Dallas. Luckily, my house was not hit, but there was standing water in my building, so that's bad. And we have at my day job an amazing capability to marshal resources. It's a big company. We are really good at building things and fixing things, and we have an amazing facilities staff, and they're working on it. But my office was hardest hit. So I am, I'm displaced, and I'm in a temporary office, and I don't have all my stuff. And, I got first world problems, right? Amazingly, with this tornado, which just totally wiped out chunks of Dallas, no one died. One guy got beat up pretty badly, and I think there were other minor injuries, but it was handfuls of people who will all, at least to my understanding, make a complete recovery. Tornadoes are really scary. This thing hopped around trees that were 100 years old on the campus where I work, just ripped from the ground like someone came along to pull weeds. I mean, it's just absolutely unbelievable, the power of this kind of stuff. Chunks of roof. There was a Home Depot close to where I work, and the roof of the Home Depot was just ripped out and all the stuff inside gone. You know, it's just unbelievable. I mean, it's just really freaky. And I don't know what, this ignited a bunch of conversations about global warming and climate and all this stuff. And this is the wrong podcast for that, but I'm going to tell you what, this tornado was truly amazing. And just from a raw power standpoint, as an engineer, I look at something like that and I go, wow. I mean, if I needed to create that kind of power, I don't even know where I would start. If that was the task I had at hand, to blow the roof off a Home Depot and suck stuff out, I don't even know how I would do that. Unbelievable power. Thank God nobody died.
Late night internet marketing.
Hey, it's Mark again. I wanted to tell you one more time about this absolutely free resource that I have for helping people who are trying to get the big picture for internet marketing, actually get started and understand what all their choices are. If that's not you, there's no more content. You can skip to the end. But if you're someone who came to this podcast because you're searching for how to get started online and you just can't cut through all the noise, I get it. That was me. In 2007, when I was trying to get started, there were so many people throwing offers at me that I really couldn't even understand what all the different business models were. I couldn't understand how money moved around on the internet, and I couldn't really get a grip on what direction I wanted to go in so I could figure out how to move forward. I've created a free video resource for you just for that purpose at latenightim.com/explain. In several short videos, I just explained to you what internet marketing is all about and what online business is all about and the different options that you have for starting an online business. There's nothing to buy there. You just sign up for access and you get the videos just like that. So if that's interesting to you, or if you know someone who's in a same situation, send them that link, latenightim.com/explain. And let me know what you think. I'd love to hear what people are thinking that are in the exact same position that I was in more than a decade ago in 2007. In some ways, it seems like yesterday. And in some ways, it seems like an entire lifetime ago. Again, that's latenightim.com/explain.
Late night internet marketing.